How impressed were you with the command in that session?
Yeah. It's everything that was advertised when we started vetting him in free agency, and that's what our scouts said, and our org loves. We think at times it's going to be 80 command, so it was really good. Definitely sides of the plate. He understands the horizontal game and how he mixed his pitches. It was just nice to finally be in person and see him do his work.
How impressive was it, especially considering he flew here a couple days ago, has the jet lag, it's his first side session of camp, all of those factors, and he still, showed the command that he did.
Yeah, he's a pro through and through, and an 18-hour flight, that's something I've never experienced before, so I can't try to parallel any similar feelings, but trying to get into the routine, and honestly, there's so many adjustments that he's going to have to make with the clubhouse and with the environment and with the weather and all those things, that he's handled himself really well. But I think a couple of days of acclimation and he should be good to go.
Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, but the strike zone is very similar in Japan, but it's maybe a little bit more wide and less up-down.
That's what I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you kind of just think that the command he shows kind of will allow him to make an adjustment really quickly because of he can control the ball?
Yeah, I think he has 6 pitches that he can throw in any quadrant. So I think everything is in due time is going to be an adjustment for him. But ultimately, he's been super receptive to the information that we've given him and the conversations that we've had. And ultimately, like he knows he's walking into a different baseball league, and he knows that there's adjustments that need to be made, and he's executing those things today. So it's nice to see.
He said he wasn't throwing a slider. What pitches did you see him throw, and what did you think of each of the offerings?
Yeah, he threw a lot of four seams, a lot of curveballs, and a lot of splitties today. A few cutters and maybe 1 or 2 sinkers. So 5 of his 6 pitches in his arsenal. Requisite shapes. He's got really good feel for what he's doing and where he's trying to go with it, and ultimately, like, intent kind of guides a lot of the coaching and a lot of the conversation. And so once he gets his feet wet a little bit, we expect him to kind of turn the dial.
We were talking to Gary, and obviously a little bit of a language barrier, so Sugano's using his hands to motion where he wants the glove. But how much does it matter that Gary has experience catching Japanese pitchers, and kind of, he said he's a lot like the guys I've caught before from Japan.
Yeah, I mean, post bullpen, Gary and I sat on the mound and kind of talked about his experience with Tanaka and some of the other guys that he's caught, and the versatility they have and what their preferences are, and how they talk about themselves. And I think there's definitely some parallels from his prior years in the game with what Tomo features.
The Orioles have shown that they're not going to just get one type of pitcher here. Pitchers with all different kinds of backgrounds. I mean, we were talking to Rodolfo Martinez earlier today. How much of an advantage is it for you to have a staff that's so diversified?
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way last year too. I thought we had a lot of versatility and the ways that we can get guys out. And I think when you look at guys, you're starting to understand why they've had success before, especially when you have kind of the older veteran type of player. But this league rewards uniqueness, and each one of these guys has one or more things that are very unique about them that lend itself to success. And so it's about growing strengths just as much as it is about chipping away at weaknesses. But we know what Tomo's game is, and we look forward to kind of learning a little bit more about him as we're here in camp.
How great is it to have 2 pitchers, Sugano and Eflin, who will probably rank around the top in walk rate, or around the bottom in walk rate, I guess. And do you expect as maybe they get closer that as the season goes on that they might compete on who's going to have the lower walk rate this year?
I don't know that at any point last year I ever heard a starter talk about walk rate. But having 2 guys with supreme command and efficiency inside of their game makes me really excited about how we can utilize the bullpen and take care of those guys down there, especially because I think these guys are probably expecting themselves to finish 6 innings and touch the 7th inning a lot of the nights. So that's only something that benefits our club.
I know they're very different pitchers, but the success of Suarez last year, do you think that made you guys more open to finding a guy who might be later in his career but has had success in some of these other leagues?
I mean, I think it does matter because you're always trying to measure emotional maturity and what has this guy done in the past that he hasn't done recently that might lend itself to success. And I think Suarez is a really good example of a guy that kind of features both of those things. You're trying to find guys that are going to help the team win games ultimately, and when you talk about uniqueness, obviously we know how Albert has a fastball that's really, really unique, and so the job one was kind of, turning the dials on the other stuff, and I think he's in as good of a spot as he's been in his entire career right now.
If to follow up on Albert really fast, sorry, change the subject, but he said he's throwing a little bit of like a slur for maybe sweeper. I don't know what you would describe it as,
Yeah.
but how do you see that complementing the other pitches? Keeping the 12-6, but adding more horizontal movement there.
Yeah, this was something that we actually explored a little bit with him last year during the season, and quite frankly, it became a kind of a curveball training tool for him. Something we used in bullpens, he would throw in throwing program and stuff, but we never deployed it in games. And he went to work this offseason and found a couple of, external things that can lend itself to something that adds depth to his arsenal, which we know, especially over the last couple of years, has been a really popular idea in baseball.
You said nice couple of times when he was pitching. Which part of staff you said it for?
For Tomo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked Yuto. I said I need to start learning his language a little bit, and I've done some things to try to help myself, but ultimately woke up the next day and forgot them. So I said, how do you say good job? And ultimately that's the phrase I went with today, and hopefully tomorrow I can learn another one. But
No, I mean, when he was in a bullpen, and you're watching behind him, and then after he pitched, you're like, nice,
yeah.
nice. I mean, like, what part of his stuff you were saying for?
Yeah, I mean, I like his stuff. I like the locations of his stuff. I like the routine in which he went about his work today and the pace that he did it. It was, for somebody so close to, where you guys were standing, it could be a little fast for some guys, but he seemed to have a really slow heartbeat and just kind of going about his work in a really professional way.
What do you think about his weapon?
His weapons? Yeah, his arsenal. We really like the split a lot. We think that there is a way to fit all those pieces into one really, really nice puzzle. But ultimately, watching some of his outings from the years past and understanding his preference and how he likes to do things, and then starting to drip some of these new ideas and some areas to explore with some of his pitch types is kind of the next thing for us.
When he's going to go back to the bullpen second time?
Yeah, I think right now, because he is fresh here in the United States, we're kind of taking it day by day. We've laid out a schedule with him, but ultimately we want him to be really comfortable with how he's recovering and how he's sleeping before we kind of make the decision on what's next for him.